again, everybody. Welcome back to the last session in our morning session of PCL this year here at Heathrow. Thanks very much for coming back to join us. I think this is one of the most interesting sessions of the day in that we've got some really fantastic people here to answer some questions that have been submitted in advance. So when you booked your tickets, you were asked to put forward questions that you would like to ask of the ATO leaders, and we've now got those questions to put forward on your behalf. We'd love to open it up to the floor, but we are at limited time, and we know that people want to be able to get back out into the exhibition hall, so that's why we've done it that way. But there will be opportunity afterwards to go back and meet each of these individuals on their stand and chat to them to explore their answers more and ask them further questions if you haven't already had the chance to do that today. So, without further ado, I'm going to welcome the team on stage. So we've got Alex Whittingham, who is from Wings Alliance and also from Bristol Ground School. Do you want to come and say hello, Alex? Tell people about yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm Alex Whittingham. Nice to meet you. And as Karen says, I'm in charge of Bristol Ground School and the head of training of Bristol Ground School. And I'm also the chairman of Wings Alliance, which is an organisation that's been created to promote the modular training, because we saw that the marketing for the integrated schools was getting quite dominant, and we thought it was important that people understood that there was not just one path to becoming a pilot, and actually there were cheaper ways and perhaps more efficient ways of doing it. So I'll be representing that point of view.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. And next up, gosh, it's a bit like a kind of fashion parade, isn't it, this? Mike Ashworth, who's from Bucks New University.
Hello, hello. Hi there. I'm not actually an ATO, so I'm here to represent really the degree way of doing pilot training. So yeah, as Karen said, I'm Michael Ashworth. I'm a lecturer at Buckinghamshire University. I'm actually a graduate from there as well. So I graduated a couple of years ago, and now I teach there and co-run the pilot course. So for those of you that are thinking, you know, I want to train to be a pilot, but I'm thinking about other routes as well, other than integrated and just pure modular, we offer a degree and the frozen ATPL. So we do things a bit differently. So any questions on that, absolutely welcome from that point of view. And yeah, I look forward to this, and hopefully come by the stand and say hello.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mike. Next is Carl Haslam from Skyborne.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, my name's Carl Haslam from Skyborne Airline Academy. I guess why am I here? Well, I've spent 30 years in the industry. I finished my career with British Airways as an A320 captain, but for the last 10 years, I've been heavily involved in sort of basic flight training. And I can see I'm going to get heckled from the back left-hand corner over there. But recently I've joined Skyborne, and we're here to try and just promote and educate and help people into the aviation industry.
And next, Oscar Sordo is from FTE Jerez.
Hello everyone. My name is Oscar Sordo. I'm the CEO of Flight Training Europe at Jerez in Spain, also the chairman of the company. Been in the industry for more than 20 years now. Started with British Aerospace, and well, for those who don't know, Jerez trains something like 200 pilots a year, and we've been lucky to be chosen by more than 20 airlines in the last 10 years to run programs directly with us. So if you got any questions about any particular program with an airline, of course now the programs have reduced, but there's some options. Well, you can make me whatever questions you have. Yeah.
Thanks, Oscar. And last but by no means least is the lovely Sarah Bowen from Heli Centre.
Afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Sarah Bowen, Heli Centre Aviation. I'm the head of training and one of the directors. Specialise in professional helicopter pilot training. So we're partnered with Bristow Helicopters, who you may have heard from earlier if you were in the seminar this morning. And we supply pilots specifically for crew supply chain into oil and gas, HEMS, North Sea operations, search and rescue, and obviously the training and testing environment as well. So I'm a flight instructor examiner and very heavily involved in the recruitment of helicopter pilots as well.
So as you can see, some real expertise up on the stage with a lot of experience, but also all with very senior roles within their organisation, which shows the commitment that these companies have to trying to help you make the right decisions as you go through today and your onward career decision. So without further ado, I've got some questions for you. These have all been submitted in advance. You'll need to pass the mics around between you, and we have to check that everybody's comfortable in doing that and that they're sanitised, etc., etc. So we're abiding by the COVID rules. So a kick-off question then. Please can you give a couple of advantages to obtaining a PPL licence before enrolling on a commercial pilot training course. I am near completing my PPL after starting at 14 years old and would like to continue via the integrated route to my APL. But would it be better to switch to modular after getting my PPL? Well, Oscar, you have the mic in your hand, so let's go to you first.
Well, I think completing a PPL shows motivation and commitment, but in terms of, I know some people will disagree, in terms of completing your training, it depends where you do the PPL. It can be a waste of time and money. So you have to be very careful in selecting where you do your PPL. Okay.
Mike, would you mind handing the microphone to Alex, because I know that he will be bursting to give his angle on this.
Because Alex is going to disagree. If you have done a PPL already, and then you go to an integrated school, the probability is you'll get very little or no credit from the school for those flying hours. And there will be a number of reasons for it and a number of justifications, but essentially they want you to do the entire flight program. So in terms of saving money, if you're taking that path, you're certainly not saving money because you get no credit at all for the PPL. In terms of experience, I think doing a PPL is absolutely invaluable. And many people start their flying training in their teens, coming up 16 or so, they'll be getting their first solos and licenses, and then they decide to go on to be an airline pilot. And when they look at the concept that they get no credit for the flying they've done so far, it's so obviously irrational that they look for other paths. And if you do take the modular path, and I think that probably would be the best path, then you can continue with your PPL studies, you can go do your ATPL ground school using distance learning courses or full-time courses. You can go and do modules of training for your CPL and your instrument rating, and you can get the whole task accomplished much, much, much more cheaply and efficiently than if you went to do an integrated course. So the summary, I guess, would be massive credit for doing a PPL at that age. I think it shows a lot of enthusiasm, just as Oscar says, shows interest, and it would be such a shame if all that effort and work was discarded. And my recommendation would be, once you've got to that stage, you've got a PPL, you've got 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours, you're almost certainly on the modular path. And it's a good path. So, look forward to seeing you.
I'm going to come back to the panel just to see if anybody else would like to add further. But this just goes to show that it's got to be the right decision for you as an individual, because we're talking about reputable organisations here who will get you to that licence route. But you need to make the right decision for you as an individual. And it just is just demonstrable of how important it is to ask the questions and feel your way to the right organisation for you.
Can I just make a point?
Steal it off you, Alex, because you've had your moment, but go for it.
Both Oscar and I have partisan views, because I only do modular. Oscar only does integrated.
No, sorry, I do modular, I do PPL, I do CPLIR, I do all modular training as well.
Perfect.
So I was going to suggest the neutral one
exactly,
here.
that's what I'm going to say. Please would someone else like to add to that?
I'm going to play the neutral party in this fight going on. So obviously, and I'm not here necessarily just to sell Skyborne, but routes into aviation. So you can do
Carl,
modular.
you might have to hold the mic a little closer to you.
Oh, sorry, is it not working?
That's fine, brilliant.
So yeah, I'm not here to necessarily just sell Skyborne. We can offer you both pathways. And both pathways have got benefits to the end game, which is becoming an airline pilot. And if you've chosen to go down the PPL route, then that's great. It's going to give you a huge amount of confidence moving into the role, moving into the career, moving into the job. But partway through that PPL, you might find that the streamlined view or efficient way of getting to that job is the integrated route. Both have got significant benefits, and it's down to the individual to decide which would suit their training needs the best.
So only to add something, I'm not against doing a PPL. You have to be very careful where you do the PPL, because if you get it wrong, the time and the money you're going to spend, it's not going to help you. That's the comment I wanted to make. It's not that it's useless, but it depends where you do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to retrain the bad habits, and you may think, well, I got 50 hours, but what have you learned in your 50 hours? That's an important question, really.
Yeah, are they the right hours? Yeah. You need to think about what your career goal is, and is that PPL giving you the right background knowledge to get you to that career goal? Anything either Sarah or Mike would like to add to that?
Yeah, just briefly on the helicopter side, we do have the same question asked. I presume this is a fixed-wing question, but it is a popular one for helicopter pilots as well. So if you have started a modular PPL course and you want to switch to integrated, that's absolutely fine as well. As everybody else has pointed out, you've got experience towards your modular route already with a PPL. But the helicopter course, there are potentially credits available if you are meeting the standard, but you have to assume that you are probably going to do the whole course, and then it's assessed as you go along. So there may be then credits if you are excelling, and obviously depending on what you've previously completed. But both routes give you the same license, and that's ultimately, it's got to suit the right circumstance for whatever you're actually doing, and how available you are as well.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Mike, did you want to say anything further?
Yeah, I just say I echo really everything that's been said here, but it all depends on what you want really. It's your personal circumstance. So doing a PPL is great. It has the benefits. It shows that motivation. It shows that willingness, that keenness, and it also shows a gauge of your skill as well, that you're able to at least achieve a license, and you're going to do a skills test. You're going to go solo. So there's lots of big events that happen during a PPL, which are quite important in your pilot career. So that's great to do that. Just, if you're going to go modular, great, then, start with PPL, that's fantastic. But if you are thinking of going integrated, you just have to bear in mind that it's not going to be credited. Is it going to be a waste of money? Not completely, but a lot of the money you spent on that PPL, you're going to have to do that flight training almost again, aren't you? Almost, So, yes, it'll help you get through your training a bit quicker, but, financially, you'll be a bit worse off if you do that PPL. So just have the caveats of, if you do want to go integrated, PPL's great, but just bear in mind the financial requirement of doing that PPL and then having to do that almost again. So yeah, it really depends on your circumstances. If you're really keen to fly and you want to get flying and you want to see, is this a career for me, then go do a PPL. Go and have a go. Go and try and see if you can actually do it, and if it's something you'd like to do and get paid to do. So if you're trying to find your feet and that's something you want to do, then start off with a PPL.
Great, thank you. Sorry, cut in on you there. Sorry, Mike. Obviously, something, again, go back to it. It's your own individual decision, but some really good insights there to that question. A good one to kick it off, got everybody going. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So something a little bit more straightforward, I guess, here, this one. Does the weather play a part in training progression being slower, say, in the winter months, or can flying continue? So, Carl, I'm going to come to you first on that one, if you could, please.
Simple answer is yes, which is why most of us here have fair weather bases. So we've got a fair weather base in Vero Beach, so we can do most of the single engine flying out in an environment which is conducive to continual training. Continuity whilst training is really important. You don't want to have big gaps, because obviously you then end up having to repeat certain elements of the training. So if you can go out to somewhere that's a little bit more sunny, then there's opportunity to just keep that continuity. And then from our perspective, we'd come back and do the more complicated phase in a more complicated environment. So the multi-engine phase for us is back in the UK, and that still affects with the weather. So obviously, but it'll give you more of an exposure to some of the conditions that you will experience, obviously, within the job. So we're trying to see this as a progression and progressive learning throughout the time with your training course.
Thank you. Anybody like to add to that?
Well, I think I can add. Well, in Spain, we can fly 700 hours a week, every week of the year, almost, I could say. That's the average we have achieved over the last 18 months during COVID times and before, actually. And yes, it plays a fundamental role. If the weather is not good in the early phases, you will get delayed, and that will affect your training, because you need continuity, particularly at the very beginning. So it plays a very, very important role. One of the things is if the students keep coming and you only have windows of good weather for some days or some weeks, everybody's trying to fly at the same time, to use the same resources, the same the instructors, aircraft. So yes, you need weather fair base, or being located in a good place, as we are in Spain. So.
Of course, Alex.
So
could I not?
Could you not? So flight training is not my speciality, but I have an opinion on most things, so I thought I'd opine on this. Yes, the answer is weather is very significant, particularly when you're doing the early stages of your flying training. The PPL, or the equivalent of the PPL that you do on an integrated course, basically has to be sunny blue skies, and no, I don't think anybody would dispute that. It's also worth noting that the fair weather bases are usually cheaper to operate for the ATOs, so they tend to try and keep people at the fair weather bases as long as they possibly can and pull them back to the European environment when they do the instrument training. That's not necessarily the best thing for the student, and there's an argument that says that once you've got your basic PPL or PPL equivalent, what you should be doing is using your flying constructively to build your skills. And with the modern instrument ratings that are available, like the EIR, it's not beyond the scope of possibility to get yourselves a basic form of instrument rating, and then you can use that in European skies in weather that isn't particularly perfect and blue to build up your skills levels rather than drilling holes in the sky in California or somewhere like that. Now, very few schools offer that sort of option. They tend to be very regimented. You're either doing fair weather training in Arizona or you're doing instrument rating training back in Europe. But if you're organising your own training, I think it might be something that you would perhaps consider.
Okay, I'm going to move on to a different question, one specifically now for you, Sarah. After PPLH, helicopters, what would be the ideal modular route to go for in order to advance one's skills and accumulate hours?
If it's a modular course, the important thing is just to get through it in an efficient manner. So just to build experience rather than just hours. So if you've got the flexibility to build hours, then fly around as much as the UK airspace as you can. We do obviously some trips sometimes into Europe and up to Scotland and to exciting places. So you can vary the hours that you build accordingly. A structured program is good. And just get to CPL as quickly as you can. Obviously, the studying that needs to go alongside it, as per the fixed wing, is obviously quite a lot of exams. So just make sure you keep flying as well to keep the motivation up and remind yourself why you're doing it in the first place.
And I think you'd all agree the tips are the same, whether it's fixed wing or helicopter, really, aren't they? You know, it's a very similar thing. But it's good that there's some interesting questions on helicopter training as well. It's great that it's coming through. A different question now. So. The one that I wanted to ask you next is, what would your advice be to anyone who finds a well-regarded and competitively priced route to an EASA licence, who then wishes to obtain a UK CAA licence? I'm trying to size the gap between third country EASA and UK CAA, where cost is obviously a key constraint. I'd like to have both EASA and CAA licences. Who wants to go first? Carl, you moved first.
I blinked first. Obviously, hot topic. Everybody's talking UK EASA. And we can get into the geopolitics of all of that, and that's outside of our control. But the real reason, obviously, if you think about whether you have the right to live and work in that member state. So if you have a European passport, would you be able to get, even if you did get a UK licence, could you exercise the privileges of that licence? And vice versa. But still, therefore, it's incumbent on us, the ATOs, to provide a vehicle to do that licence conversion. And that's laid down. So you could get a UK licence and you could do an EASA conversion, and vice versa, you can get an EASA licence and do the UK conversion. That's laid down. There is cost associated with that, and it could be anything from £4,000 to £10,000, depending where you are within the programme.
Sorry, the conversion means, for those who start the training now, having to sit the exams with the two authorities. So you have to sit the exams with the CAA and the same exams with the other authority. You can do it in the same day or in a different day. But it's, I wouldn't say double effort, but it's a nuisance due to Brexit. My recommendation would be, well, if you can get the two licenses, why not? You know, you are prepared, you have studied for the exams, you can sit the two exams. And there's a number of schools that can provide the two exams. So my recommendation would be for a UK national to try to get the two licenses, because you may have an opportunity to fly in a national airline, flying locally, and well, you better have the two. Yeah, now, if I have to choose between only having one or the other, I would prefer, of course, EASA. There's going to be more job opportunities.
Spot the European. And I'm obviously going to defend the corner, but there's two sides of this, and you're absolutely right, Oscar. So if you're thinking about doing it, therefore you need to sit both sets of exams, European, EASA and UK, all be them the same exams, which is crazy. And then throughout the training course, there's a license conversion process at the end to do the skills test at the end exam in both an EASA member state and the UK to get both licenses.
I can see Alex is switching.
Sorry.
I'm going to say I agree with Oscar here. Because I don't see that there's a necessity to actually complete one license and then convert it. I think it's possible to do training for both European licenses and English licenses in parallel. and you can do this all the way through. You can do one ground school and just simply take 2 sets of exams. But once you've done that, it's theoretically possible, and I think practical, to find ATOs that have dual approvals, that hold approvals from EASA and from the UK. You simply do one course with them, and if it's arranged properly, the single test that you do at the end could be with an examiner that's certified both to the UK CAA and to an EASA state, and so you just do one course, one test, being 2 ticks in 2 boxes, and you should be able to do that through most of your licensing. So the only bit that's unusual is having to take 2 sets of ground exams, but one course, 2 sets of exams. I think that's what you were saying, wasn't it, Oscar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's an ATO that is dual approved, UK and Spain.
That's possible. Actually, in the recent meetings we've had with the CAA, they're open actually to give more approvals to non-based ATOs outside the UK. So that's going to happen, and there are some organisations who already are doing it already. So.
Great. Anybody want to add further on that, or are you comfortable?
I'd just sort of summarise up really and say, I think I echo what Carl said here, that you need to think about where you have the right to live and work. Yes, you can get a visa, but you don't know how easy that's going to be and the cost involved with that. So thinking about where you actually want to work. Do you want to work in the UK? Do you want to work in Europe? But definitely the advantage is to have both. As when we were part of EASA, you could operate anywhere within Europe, and that was a glorious time until Brexit happened. So as political it is, and as annoying it is to do both ground school exams for both states, it's well worth doing it. It opens up those opportunities. So if you can do both at the same time, even at slightly extra cost, it's probably worth doing that. Even if you don't have an EU passport, it's worth doing that for the job opportunities, I'd say.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to add something. Don't believe that because of having a British passport, you cannot fly commercially from the UK to another country on an EASA license. You can do it, So it depends where your base is. And there will be some airlines who will only accept the EASA license being established here in the UK. So.
Yeah, a good example of that is actually Ryanair as well, and they're one of the obviously bigger recruiters of low-hour pilots that most of you might end up going to. They're Irish-based EASA, but they have UK bases. So if you have a UK passport, you can still work in the UK, Ireland, or Morocco, funnily enough. So that is still possible. So yeah, definitely.
I think it's a moving feast as well right now, isn't it? So it's really well worth keeping an eye on what's being changed. There's lots of discussion going on about making life a little easier again for those of us within the UK setup. So watch the space, but some really good insights there on that one. I'm going to end this session with the all nasty question, and that's the funding question. So on my list of questions that we've had through here, the most popular by far question is what sort of funding is there available? How can we manage this as an average earning family? Any scholarships available? Any unsecured loan providers available? So I'm going to go to you first, Mike, on that one, because from the university perspective, you might have something to input, I guess.
I can certainly sort of add my insight into where people fund their courses when they come to uni. I'd say for the modular route that we offer at the university, it's going to set you back around £80,000 you'll need to invest. Of course, it's spread over a longer period, which is great, but it's still quite a lot of money. So I always get the money question, and I myself have had to find ways of funding it, and I've gone through different pots of money. So there are such things as career development loans, but they're not always easy to get. And if you can't prove that you've got a job that you're going to go to, banks are a little bit hesitant to give you that. There are companies that do offer ATPL loans as well. Usually it's quite a lot of collateral and a high percentage of interest, rate on that as well. So you've got to bear in mind. But there's different loans available. All I'd say is, whatever your financial sort of background is, if it really is a big struggle, the lump sum of a lot of money, and then what a lot of our students do is they just get the degree on its own, or they just get a PPL, and they figure it out over time. Modular means you can spread it over time. Just bear in mind, once you've done your ground school exams, you've got a period that you need to get the rest of your training done. But there's no problem with spreading that training over a period of time if you need to for the finance. So it's just what works with you. But I find most students that come through us, when I ask them how have you funded it, most of them say sort of remortgaging the house is quite a common one. Family left me some money, or savings, sold a car, or there's many different ways that you can go about finding that.
Cool, thank you. Anybody got any innovative approaches that they've discovered or that they're able to support through their organisation?
Yeah, I agree with Michael. You know, access to money is not easy, particularly these days. 2 years ago, there was some airlines who were funding part of the training. I don't want to give names, but one of them that worked with us could fund 100% of the training of the cadets and another 50% of the training. So there were some opportunities. I don't think those opportunities are going to be there for the next couple of years, I would doubt. Now, our contribution from FTE, I can announce that we're going to offer a couple of sponsorships. So it's 2 scholarships for 2 people with all the costs of the training and the accommodation included. So applications will open soon, and we expect to close them by the end of this year. So any one of you who may be interested, you can apply. Of course, we will take into consideration how well you do through the selection, but we will also consider what your financial situation is, because we'll ask for financial information to assess if you really cannot fund it yourself and you need help. That will be important as well.
Okay, thank you, Oscar. We are up on our time, but if there's one more comment, then I'll allow one more comment very quickly.
So your funding's always going to be the barrier to entry on this one. But all I know is obviously later this month there's also a meeting with the Department for Education on the apprentice scheme within the UK. And we can go either way with that. Hopefully we can get a resolution whereby you can sign on to an apprenticeship scheme with the HAOs. I'm not promoting Skyborne here. They can actually support some of the financial costs going into flight training.
Let's keep it on that sort of nice generic level there, Alex, to end on, which is nice. A very independent point there was made.
So generically, I would say choose wisely, because you get the same end result through a price range from somewhere around about £45,000 at one end up to £120,000 at the other. And if money is important to you, and I think it's important to most people, you want to look at what you get for your money. It's very, very easy for parents to fund this thing through second mortgages, but there is a big caution on there that you're basically putting the family house on this line. So my advice would be to do it as little as you possibly can, to go into debt as little as you possibly can, because you do hear horror stories of schools that go bust. And there's a generic warning that there are generically flight schools out there that will take nearly all the money you're due on the course within the first 6 months or so of the course. So they're sitting on £100,000 of your money when you've hardly seen an aeroplane, and that's a bad plan, a really bad plan. So that's my generic bit.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Taking a microphone away from him now. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our panel. Thank you for your very heartfelt insights there, and thank you all of you to listening. The panel will be either back on their stands or out in the foyer area. In fact, I think they'll all be back on stands. So you'll be able to find them back on their stands to go and ask any further questions. Thanks very much indeed. You can leave through the door at the bottom here if it's easier. Thank you.